In the face of uncertainty, how can leaders be more resilient? I'm Chester Elton, and this is my dear friend and co-author, Adrian Kostick.
Well, thanks, Jess. Yeah, leading through change requires genuine connection with stakeholders, and our guest today is going to give us some practical tips for leading when inevitable disruptions do come. We hope that the time you spend with us will help remove the stigma of anxiety and mental health in the workplace and your personal life.
And with us is our new friend, Michelle Ray, who is a former business executive and now a professional speaker. She's the author of 2 books, Lead Yourself First, Indispensable Lessons in Business and Life, and Leading in Real Time, How to Drive Success in a Radically Changing World. Michelle lives in British Columbia, Canada, and is a self-described hockey fanatic, which makes us love you even more, Michelle.
Yes.
So, yeah, welcome to the podcast, and please tell us, who's your favorite team?
Oh, well, I've got to say the Vancouver Canucks.
Excellent choice. You know, I grew up in Vancouver.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So Canucks go run deep in my family. So thanks so much for that. Well, listen, let's get to it. Adrian, time is yours.
Well, Michelle, in your book, Leading with Real Time, you say leaders need to lead in the now. So we wanted to know what you mean by that.
Well, I think that when we talk about the word now, we are, as we refer to it today, talking about real time. What is happening right now? So I think it's really important for leaders, if they want their employees to, they want to be seen by their employees as trustworthy and effective, then they've got to really be relevant and act like a leader in the now, rather than being that boss who's fixated on how they used to do things before.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it? You talk about fear as an emotion that can undo a lot of good leaders. So how is fear playing out in today's workplaces, and how can we manage that better as leaders?
Well, I mean, I'm with you. Like, I know you talk about this a lot in your book as well. And I think that it's understandable for so many people, especially in the last few years, that the possibility that they're going to lose their livelihood would dominate their thoughts. And, that's why they've kind of taken charge of their own destiny. So, whether somebody's fears are real or their anxieties are real or imagined, I think a leader's role is to really be supportive and acknowledge all of those feelings and allowing people to express them openly before they start offering solutions. I think we all know that, sometimes leaders try to control everything. So just acknowledge how people are feeling can already put them at ease when they know somebody's truly listening to them. And I also think you ask what we can do about it. I think people really need that reassurance from their leaders. And that's when a leader's capacity to be relatable, authentic, to be an outstanding communicator is the key. And people just really need to know, their teams need to know that their leaders have the ability to listen and really understand what they're dealing with, what they're going through.
Well, you brought up some big issues there, though, of this idea of, their livelihoods may be impacted. That's a big, scary, thing out there in the world. You look at these tech companies over the last few weeks that have been laying off tens of thousands of people cumulatively. And so, people are looking at that right now and going, okay, this is scary. So are we really going to have this conversation? Because most leaders won't around layoffs. Layoffs means that we basically failed. We messed up in some way. So how do you have those kinds of really tough conversations and really get into what your people are feeling, deep down? That's a tough thing to get into.
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, you just brought back a memory. Imagine sitting in a boardroom. I know you've both done something like this, with the key people at a very large consulting financial accounting practice, and they're talking about this very thing. And I'm going back like 14 years ago, and I remember one of the leaders said, "We can't afford to shrink ourselves to glory."
Wow.
I love that quote. And they were having a big debate about this. So you're absolutely right. Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to lay people off, or are we going to, bite the bullet and realize that we can't afford to do that in the long run? I mean, today the circumstances are slightly different, but the issue is very real for a lot of people. And again, I think that when you have the relationship, you do, part of having those difficult conversations comes with the territory. And the big buzzword that people are talking about today is humanizing the connection. So, if you're asking, yes, you've got to be able to help to connect on that level, and you have to be real about it rather than dancing around it if it really has to happen.
What about yourself, Michelle? As a business owner yourself, how has anxiety impacted you then over the last few years? What have you gone through personally that you've learned from and you're helping your clients understand?
Well, I'm really honest about this. The pandemic affected me in a huge way. I've found it incredibly difficult at this stage after, 25 plus years in business and going through other difficult times like 9/11 and, 2009 and how bad things were. But this was on another level because it literally shut everything down. And I hadn't really experienced those kind of mental health issues myself. So, I think that for me, being worried about the future, being riddled with self-doubt at various points, it really had a big impact on me. However, how I translate that now, even looking back, and it's not all that far, it also helped me to reprioritize my life and to put my work into perspective. So that's something I can share with people, that, it gives you that opportunity to really look at things because you can have more time to do that. And the other thing, which is something I share with my audiences, is think about what you have learned, all the new skills that you've learned, the things that you never thought you could do. And I'll often take them along a little journey of thinking about all the things that you've done over the last couple of years that you weren't doing before. That might include, cooking, knitting, I don't know, spending more time with your family. But on a skills level, I can say for me personally, spending this much time online, I'm really grateful because it's given me another dimension to my business. So having an appreciation for the adversity is something that I think we can all learn from.
And sharing your story as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm human like the rest of us. And I think that makes people feel more at ease when they can relate to my situation and put themselves in those shoes or have their own version of it.
Yeah. You also talk about stamping out generational labeling. At the same time, it is true. We characterize generations in terms of, when were you born? Are you a baby boomer? Are you Gen X, Gen Z, and so on? What do you think about the newest generation entering the workplace? What are you seeing there?
I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think it's a very exciting time in business because you've got the most savvy generation of our time, educationally, socially, their level of awareness off the charts, now contributing to our businesses. And as I mentioned before, they're very bold in their approach to their career and their desire to take control of their own destiny. So what I believe and what I think is a really good message for business and for leaders is, let's get real. You're really not going to necessarily have them for long. So if you don't have them for a long time, make it a good time. Make it a special time. Because they've got a perspective on the world that we can all learn from and appreciate. So I also believe that we're in this work world now where leaders and managers, I was not like this when I was in my first job. They don't put their leaders on a pedestal, and they're no longer revered or feared by the workforce the way they used to be. I don't know if that's been your experience, but they really are very expecting a lot of openness from their leaders, and they want to connect with them.
That is such an interesting point about putting your leaders on a pedestal, because I remember coming to work and it was the default setting that your leader must be great. And you wanted to be just like them, right? Because if they weren't great, how did they get to be a leader, right? We just kind of bought in, and that was our job to work up there. And I just want to say that I have always put Adrian Gostick on a pedestal.
As you should.
Always.
Hey,
I'm sure he does the same with you, Chester.
No, he doesn't. But that's another story.
Hey, I did a little Googling of you and your work, Michelle. So how do people learn a little bit more about you and who you are?
Oh, thank you, Adrian. My website, www.michelleray.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So that would be so wonderful. I'd really appreciate that. And then if they're interested in my books, Leading in Real Time is available to all your favorite online retailers. And Lead Yourself First also.
Awesome. Well, so let's talk about anxiety at a team level. So you've given a couple of ideas. Okay, let's have some open, honest conversations. What else can leaders do to alleviate the anxiety of their people?
Number one, we can't say it enough, is communicate. I think more than ever before, people want you to be available. So if you're invisible, it's obviously going to raise stress and anxiety. I mean, some of these people, of course, they're leading massive workforces, but I think somehow they have to do a better job of recognizing what people are needing and that anxiety level, how high it is. As I said before, humanizing the relationship and really showing you care in a genuine way is going to go a long way to making people feel less anxious. Get to know who they are. And I guess I could add one other thing. I know that if you can show people how you've also had times in your own life where you've been anxious, then you're, really on a more sort of level playing field with them. And then they go, I don't feel alone now. My leader knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, which obviously leads us to the next question after you've dealt with your team. How can leaders manage their anxiety? What are some practices you've seen that help leaders? Because, we often say, right, you have to put your mask on first before you can help the person next to you. So what best practices have you seen?
Absolutely. And that old cliche, it's lonely at the top. I really think that, and I know you both do this extremely well, like having a confidant, you're the confidant for those leaders, and they just really want to be heard, and they're feeling the pressure more than probably any other time. They've got to ride this wave of uncertainty. They want to stay ahead of the curve. So it's really hard as a leader to be able to do that on your own. So I think you can manage your anxiety by making sure that you're connecting with people who you can relate to, you feel comfortable with. Try, to realize you don't have to do it all by yourself. And it's okay to ask for that help. And I just think take it one step at a time.
Excellent. Before we start to wrap things up here a little bit, in your bio, you're very careful to put that you're a rabid hockey fan. And so sports analogies I know are always overused, but what life lessons and leadership lessons have you learned from hockey? I would be fascinated.
We don't have enough time, do we? Because I'm such a fanatic. Oh, gosh.
And
truly,
by the
where
way,
do I start?
Michelle is a real fanatic because she didn't say ice hockey fan.
She said hockey.
Just say hockey. Right. Yeah, just say
There's only
anybody.
one. There's only one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my goodness. Well, when I started, and again, like this totally off the cuff here because it's such a great unscripted question. When I started writing my book, Leading in Real Time, there was so much drama going on in the hockey world. There were this huge awareness about, the lack of diversity with players, people getting themselves into trouble on the air, renowned announcers saying the wrong thing. So I think, they actually reflect, sport often reflects what's going on in society. In hockey, I think they've been a step behind, and now they're realizing that and trying to catch up. But the worst thing that they can do is just play lip service, because then it really looks fake. So I think that I've noticed that myself, just because I'm aware of leadership and also being a fan of the game. So I think that's something. I think a lot of these leaders really need media training, the way that they answer questions. I mean, we've got a whole lot going on with my team at the moment. We just lost our captain. So, I watched the general manager answer that question, and I think maybe he wasn't quite as prepared for it. So There are team issues happening in sport, the way that there are team issues happening in business. And again, I'd love to see more leaders really have that awareness. And you don't see that all the time with leaders in sport, but it is something that people are craving.
And I like what you're saying there is, and you're right, as hockey fans ourselves, sometimes, unfortunately, the game can be a little bit behind the times versus ahead. And you look at other sports that have tried to take a more proactive and be on top of issues, whether, with so much that is going on with race issues, with ownership issues, with coaching issues, etc. And so I like what you're saying there. What's the relationship to our team? Are we being more sensitive, especially to those people who may feel like others within our groups? And so I think that's really powerful, is that we need to be thinking a little bit more and seeing the trends. And are we, it comes back to what you were talking about in the beginning. Are we in the now? Because whether you like it or not, you need to be aware of where the world is taking us.
Yeah, and I think also that the piece about the generational piece. I mean, you hear people talking today that the players have the power, and I think that this is, what was it last year? I can't remember which renowned publication said this is the year of the employee. And mental health, and I think again that is a reflection, but not all the leaders in sport have caught up with that.
Yeah, we're always interested in personal self-care.
Yes.
So we'd be really interested. What are some of your rituals? How do you take care of your mental health? Would you like to share that with us?
Oh, sure. If I don't get out of the house, it's not a good day, and I always get out of the house when I'm not traveling. I go for walks every single day, rain, snow, no matter what. I love to get out in nature, just even being around the neighborhood. I'm in a beautiful province, so getting out to the mountains. I need to remove myself from the four walls because, obviously, when we couldn't get out, that was an acute period of anxiety that I felt. So I really appreciate being outside, going to the gym, going to nature, and whenever I can, going away. Short trips, long trips, makes me feel so good.
Oh, that's wonderful. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Been great getting to know you. What one or two big takeaways? Now, you've been studying leadership for some time now. What would you want our leaders to take away with today, relating to leadership, anxiety, and how we can better treat our people?
Well, I think one thing I could say is just remember to be real. And, if you can be real with your people, I think you're going to go far. And you don't have to have all the answers today. I think that is a really key point for leaders to understand that it's okay to be that way. People will connect with you on a deeper level if you can do that. And I think the other thing is to just recognize that we used to have a really long-term view to leadership. We still plan and we still focus on strategy and everything else, but we really need to be leading in real time right now to be the most effective and be ready to adapt on the fly and make the right moves right now as well.
Excellent. Well, our guest today has been Michelle Ray. She is an author of two wonderful books that should be on your bookshelf: Lead Yourself First, Indispensable Lessons in Business and Life, and Leading in Real Time, How to Drive Success in a Radically Changing World. She's also a wonderful keynote speaker. Look her up on LinkedIn and her website. I'm sure you'll be delighted as to the messages she delivers at your conference. Michelle, really good fun. We love that you're a diehard Vancouver Canucks fan. And coming to us from beautiful British Columbia, thanks so much for your time and your wisdom.
Thank you both so much.
So, Adrian, a fellow hockey fan, how great is that? And great wisdom. I'm curious, what were some of your takeaways?
Well, I think a few things that sort of jumped out to me that were really reinforced chatting with Michelle. One is to be available. I hear this so often, is that And we found in all of our studies when we were writing All In that leaders come in, they at 8 or 9 o'clock, they close the door. We don't see them again until 5 or 6 when they leave. What we found, the highest engaged teams, those managers spend about 75% of their time with their people. That's hard for a lot of managers that are so sucked into working, with peers, with bosses, with clients, etc. But you want an engaged team, you got to spend time with them. That's being in the now.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciated when she said, look, it comes down to communication. With all the uncertainty and all the changes, you've got to make sure that you're communicating, if not over-communicating, to put people's minds at ease with all that's going on. And, we keep thinking, we're going to have this little period of niceness. And then all of a sudden, the economy rears its head and people are getting laid off, So you never know. I appreciated her take on communication.
Yeah. Another one was sort of for a leader, a couple of things, have a confidant, which is really important.
Yes.
Whether it's a mentor, whether it's a coach, have somebody that you can unload to who's not going to be, take and use it against you, if you will, but also be real. You don't have to have all the answers. I think that idea of vulnerability is so important. Nobody expects, especially as she was saying, Gen Z, they don't expect their managers to have all the answers anymore.
No.
They expect them to be a partner with them and figure things out as they move forward.
Yeah, her take on generations I thought was really interesting. Bold, interesting, savvy, smart. They're not going to put you on a pedestal, which I think is a little frightening for leaders. You hire somebody, you want sort of that immediate respect that you need to prove yourself out and that authenticity, that sharing your story. What did I learn? And I've been anxious before too. It's okay. She also, in passing, said, you're not going to have them for very long.
Yeah, I thought that was
so.
good.
Yeah. So make it fun, make it great while they're there, knowing that they're probably not going to be there for very long. People change jobs a lot. Right?
Yeah, you've talked about this often, is that idea is that you have to welcome people back. So you have to send them away well, because sometimes they're going to be coming back to you. And that's a different world where in the past where we used to expect people to stay with us 2, 3, 5, 10, whatever years. Now they may stay 6 months, but they may come back in a year, and they may stay 3 years this next time. It's a different world, and we have to be ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, those were my takeaways.
Yeah.
Any wrap up? Any final thoughts, Adrian?
No, I think it's just a really important reminder to be real, to lead in the now, to not get hung up on, no, this is the way we've always done it. I remember when we started writing Anxiety at Work, I was speaking to a big defense contractor, and they had some Q&A time at the end, and I started realizing every single question was about this younger generation. Why don't they get it? Why don't they get how things are done here? And it was interesting. After 5 of these questions, I just simply posed the question, is it possible that maybe we all need to start managing a little differently and be more in the now, as Michelle says? So I think that's my last takeaway is they need to change a little bit too, but we need to change. We need to meet in the middle here.
Yeah. I like, too, that she said, look, even through all those trials and all the upheaval, that she was grateful for the time, that she had to explore new areas and recalibrate her life and reprioritize her life, which brings us obviously through all the wonderful people that we're grateful for, aren't we, Adrian? Our wonderful producer, Brent Klein, who makes all these podcasts sound so wonderful, and Christy Lawrence, who helps us find amazing guests, and of course all of you who listen in and give us your time and share it hopefully with others. We never take you for granted, and we're grateful for that.
We are. If you like the podcast, please share it and download it. We also love you to visit thecultureworks.com. That's thecultureworks.com for some free resources. Of course, pick up a copy of Anxiety at Work wherever great books are sold. And we love speaking to audiences around the world, virtually or in person, on the topics of culture, leadership, teamwork, resilience. So give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about your event.
Yeah, and pick up our books. They're available to find bookstores everywhere. And by the way, anybody can buy just one. Buy 2. They make great gifts, birthdays, anniversaries, bar mitzvahs. Well, listen, we're grateful for your time, for our guests, and for this chance we have to spend with you to talk about mental health. Adrian, it's always a delight to see you, and our wonderful guests. And hey, I'll probably see you in about another week. What do you think? Should we do this again?
Let's do it again. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Until next time, we wish you the best of mental health.